Hey guys, Barry McGinnity here for another episode of the Comeback Game Inspired and Unstoppable. Coming to you live from Jakarta today. And on the line, I've got Tim Guest, who's Australian leading finance educator and investment expert. He's the founder and managing director of Infinite Wealth. So, mate, first and foremost, thanks so much for agreeing to join us on the podcast, or our podcast, The Comeback Game. And look, what I'd really love to dive into today for the viewers and listeners out there is to a little bit around, how did you come to be, Australia's leading expert when it comes to the financial and wealth space, and the journey that been on to actually achieve that? Because I'm sure that it hasn't been without overcoming some significant challenges and adversity.
Yeah, well, I think like in many people's cases, it's probably the adversity and the challenges that actually have you reach the heights that you reach, so to speak. I grew up in a very poor background. I grew up in an outer suburb of Perth, in a single income family. And we always struggled with money. Always, I guess, I had the experience of being like the poor kid, and the way I remember it as a kid was, all the other kids had, nicer clothes and they got to drink soft drink and we didn't. And, but that's how it was, and, we never went without, but certainly money wasn't something that we experienced a lot of. And probably what made that, what made it hard was during the recession of the late 80s, early 90s, my dad lost his job. He was the only income earner in our family. And I guess there was kind of a really pivotal moment for me. And that was, it was a day where mum and my sister were out and dad and me were at home. And I was a young teenager and I did, whatever young teenagers typically do, which normally upsets their dads. And he got angry and he kind of chased me and I ran, and we lived in this split level house and I ran, up the kind of half staircase that we had. And, he collapsed in a heap behind me. And, what I realised after a few moments that he was actually crying, and he kept saying over and over again to me was, "I'm so sorry, Tim. I'm so sorry." And my old man is an ex-farmer, ex-military. He's a tough bloke. So to see, I guess, him, reduced by that kind of financial stress was a really pivotal moment for me. And I think that was the moment that I guess really it became evident to me that, money is important and, you better make sure you've got some of it. And for me, I was never anywhere near as tough as what my old man was. So, I better make sure that I'm not in the same kind of situation. And that kind of set me on a path. That path involved, firstly, I was just motivated about going and getting work and getting a job and climbing the ladder and getting promoted and earning bigger incomes. And I can remember at the time there was a sales manager I looked up to, and he was 55 years of age. And the day I found out how much he was earning, shocked me. It was 55, so meaning, it was a long, long way away and it was nowhere near enough money. So I was like, man, this job thing isn't going to do it. I better start thinking about some other things. I went and started some businesses. Probably the first business I got involved in was a multi-level marketing business, which I didn't make really any money out of, but at the same time, it did expose me to books and tapes and mentors and, that kind of thinking. So, I guess I got a lot of value out of that period, but not in a financial sense. And it wasn't, and I continued with other businesses as well. And, something that I talk about to people a lot nowadays is that, having your own business it still generates the exact same thing as a job. It generates an income, and just like any kind of investment, there are greater returns that you can get from having your own business, but what always comes with greater returns is greater risk. And, like yourself and, those people out there who have their own business understand, there's a lot of risk when it comes to having your own business. The buck stops with you. You're responsible. And not only that, but, you got to work about 10 times harder. So, there's no annual leave and weekends and evenings. And, most people, when they're running their own business are, working kind of 24/7, So, it kind of, while I was making more money, it still didn't leave me with that this was kind of going to be the pathway to, security and freedom and peace of mind financially. And it wasn't until I was 22 years of age, I met my first ever real life multimillionaire, guy who was a South African immigrant, came to Australia with nothing within, I think it was about 5 or 6, maybe even 7 years, turned himself into a multimillionaire. probably followed the advice of my old man, which to this point in time still remains the single best piece of advice I've ever been given, and that was to only listen to people who are where you want to be. So I grabbed hold of that multimillionaire as tight as I could. He was very generous, kind of agreed to kind of take me under his wing, and he became the first of 5 mentors that I've had, and got me on my path. And I guess within those first 5 years, I bought 13 properties in 5 years. And then at 27, I was able to retire for the first time. And my net wealth was, in excess of $2 million. So, I was a multimillionaire, and, that began a little bit of another phase of my life, which, was kind of thinking that I'd made it. Girls, cars, travel, all that kind of stuff. But one of the things that I found is that that underlying sense of not being good enough that I'd had from when I was a teenager being bullied at school still remained. And I think, that was probably a fairly dark period for me. Not only was I probably not treating my body and my mind as well as I probably should have been, but I think I thought that when I reached my goal to be retired, which was a goal that I, strived and worked, very hard towards for a long time, I think that I thought the sense of not being good enough would disappear. And it didn't. It still lingered there, although I was able to suppress it for a while with, all the fun and travel I was doing. But, I had another, I guess, kind of poignant moment in my life when a friend of mine kind of had done this personal development course, and, I'd done lots of personal development, all sorts of tapes and things like that before, and she got a lot out of it and wanted me to do it. And my response was, I was an arrogant so-and-so, and I was like, no way, look at me, I'm, not that I probably externally said this, but I think what I was thinking was, I'm doing great, thanks. Like, I don't need one of those courses. That's kind of for people that have, don't have a handle on their life. But she hassled me for a number of months. Finally, I kind of run out of excuses. I certainly couldn't complain about not having the time, and certainly couldn't complain about not having money. So I went and did her stupid course, and hated pretty much the whole time until into about the third day, where I got an insight into my life, and that kind of opened up a whole new door for me, and something that I never really had seen before. Yeah, so I guess, kind of what I got to see was, really a lot of my drivenness and my want to be successful was to make up for, something I decided about myself when I was about 7 years of age, being bullied. And, I decided that I was not good enough.
So just to take it back a couple of notches, like how old were you that day that your father broke down the stairs in tears?
I don't specifically remember ages. I know sometimes people look back on their life and they can remember years and ages and stuff like that. I don't know. I don't.
Are we talking like 7 to 10? Are we talking 10 to 15?
I think it was around about 13, something along those lines. I was in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you know, or were you aware of, like, what was the decision that you made about yourself or about life or about money at that point in time? Because that's a hell of a defining moment that has in many ways shaped the foundation of where you are today. And I know from a psychological perspective is that often, the experiences that we learn to survive become the experiences that our continued survival depends upon. So if we've survived the experience of poverty, obviously that's, often that's a safe experience for us to continue to have in life, even though it's not what we want. Unless there's a big enough defining moment where we make a strong enough stance internally that things are going to be different, which it sounds like that day when your father, broke down the stairs you made. Like, what was the decision that you made, or what was it you said to yourself at that point in time that has started to shape the rest of your life?
Yeah, look, I'm not specifically certain, and I think it was probably a combination of things. So, and I know, Barry, that you'll probably love this stuff. I know you kind of really have an interest in this stuff. Once I kind of discovered a lot of this myself, it really engendered an interest in me. And, I've studied, with the Harvard School of Business and, all these kinds of areas around, why we are the way we are. And I think probably it was a combination of things. So one, there was a moment for me when I was 7 being bullied at school. It was getting quite bad. I got to a point where I was like, look, I've got to do something about this. And I can remember going to school the next day, and I was going to speak to a teacher, or principal or something along those lines. But that day I got called into the principal's office and I got in trouble because the kid who'd been bullying me had gone home the night before and told his mum that I was bullying him. So, as a 7-year-old kid, I guess dealing with, like having to kind of generate the courage that, oh my God, like I'm in trouble here and I'm going to have to do something about it. And then being blindsided like that, which was further then, I guess, amplified by, and I think, this is something that I kind of distinguished later on. I went home that day and I was begging mum and dad. I can remember sitting on my bed, facing my built-in robe in the house that I grew up in Gosnells, and I was bawling my eyes out and I was begging mum and dad to send me to another school. Like I was clear, essentially what you're saying, I could not survive by staying at that school. For my own survival, I had to go to another school. And mum and dad said no. And I think what the decision that got made by my brain in that moment was that you can't be who you are and have other people like you.
Wow.
And then I guess your brain is trying to figure out, well, in that case, well, what are we going to do? What's the game plan from here? And I think my brain decided some version of, well, firstly, Tim, you got to be really confident. Like you cannot show any form of weakness. You always have to project confidence. Secondly, you got to be kind of charismatic. You got to have the ability to be a chameleon and get along with all kinds of people in any kind of situation or moment, and be like kind of not only a people pleaser, but maybe a little bit charming, like charismatic as well. And then finally was, hey, be clear. Even the people that are meant to take care of you, i.e. your mum and dad, they're not on your side. You're on your own. So you're going to have to be independent. So, being left with those, that kind of confidence, that charismatic, that independent, I guess, it's no surprise that, the kind of path that I went down was, I was in sales. That has always kind of been the area that I've worked in, working with people. I've kind of always pursued that kind of entrepreneurial lifestyle. And when I have had businesses, it was for many, many years. I was a sole proprietor. Well, I was a self-employed, working on my own, no staff or not really working together. It's kind of that decision in that moment really kind of mapped out how my life was. And there was always this sense of having to prove myself. And, I think, as far as my brain is concerned, being retired at the age of 27, there's some kind of evidence for that, you might say. But
well,
at the same time,
I was just going to say, tell me about the transition, because, one thing that I've learned, and I'm sure you will agree, is that you can't just reach a certain point in life and go, okay, well, that's it. Like in terms of I need to prove myself, and then you retire and it's like, okay, that's it. If we don't constantly reinvent ourselves and, recreate ourselves, you experience that stagnation, you experience hitting a glass ceiling. So, to get to that point in time in life where it's like, okay, well, I've kind of proved myself. I've got a net worth of over $2 million. I've got a bunch of houses. I'm retired. I've got cash. I've got money. Life's great. Like it's a significant turnaround from being back at 7 to 13 years old, having the experience you had growing up. Like what was the reinvention then to re-inspire you or fuel you? Because I just see so many people that reach that point where it's like, oh, I've made it. Like I've achieved what I've always wanted to achieve or what I never thought was possible, or I've achieved the opposite of what I'm running away from. But then I see so many people that sabotage. It's like the people that win the lotto, like 98% of people, I think the statistic states, that win the lotto within 2 years of winning the lotto are worse off financially than before they won the lottery, because their system can't sustain that level of change because it's not something that's comfortable or safe for them to have. So let's talk about how you've constantly reinvented yourself to now be, a leader in the financial education and investment space, because that's pretty phenomenal. Like not just have you gone and done this for yourself, you now actively help, blue collar workers, the mum and dads, to do this for them as well. Like how have you kept reinventing yourself?
Whatever we run away from, even when we achieve it, when it's designed to make up for something that we feel isn't there, what it actually will always bring with it is the experience we're trying to evade. So whenever I'm trying to, utilize those characteristics to make up for what I thought I wasn't, what's always there is that not being good enough. And, and that's very much the experience I had after I achieved what I thought was, success or a point that I was trying to get to. And, and at the same time, I was so focused on that, I'd never really thought about what would happen after, But when I had got that insight, it was such an eye-opening experience to see that, I guess, what my brain was, the patterns that my brain was creating for me. I was just enthralled by how our brain works like that, and how, and a bit of an insight into it previously, but, I got to see something really newly. So firstly, I guess having that cleared away, and that was really the sense that I had. It was like the slate got cleaned, and I was left back being the same person that I was before I was 7. I've always been very gentle by nature, very compassionate, caring, wanting to help, quite emotional at times as well. Like, really wearing my heart on my sleeve. Like, I'm the worst for, you see an inspiring movie or something along those lines. My wife, I should say, sitting down one end of the couch watching the movie, I'm at the other end of the couch bawling my eyes out. I got reinstated to that person that I was many, many years ago. And I just really, what was really present for me was how much I just care about people and how much I want to make a difference. And I guess it opened a couple of doors for me from there. So one was the work that I did, I just loved so much. I absolutely loved it. I wanted to find out a hell of a lot more of it. I did a couple more of the courses, and then I ended up being trained. And I spent 4.5 years leading programs, thousands of people, being trained under some of the top performance coaches in the world. Like we said before, at the Harvard School of Business, studying things like neuroscience, phenomenology, ontology, and I guess in English that, it's essentially how people can produce quantum leaps in performance, and in whatever they determine as being performance, whether it's in their relationships, their health, their career, their money. And I really, really love it. And I just kept for many, many years, and even still today, I just continually develop myself, continually find new fields of, philosophy, science, study around human beings and how we behave. So, that's one of the things. And I've just learned so much about myself and human beings in doing that work. But at the same time, it also awakened in me, I want to achieve, not to make up for something, but just because I love testing myself. I love picking things that I don't know that I can do, and then learning or discovering things about myself as I go out to try and do it. It's, one of the things I've found is that the most valuable things I've ever done in my life have always sucked while I've been doing them. Whether it's, I did a couple of amateur boxing fights. Why? Because I was terrified of physical confrontation. I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, all of these things during the time you're doing them, they suck. Absolutely suck. But you learn a lot about yourself, and it's how hard they are that you look back on, and that's where you get the sense of achievement from. So, from there, I decided that I wanted to start a business. I looked out into, like the you might say the wealth space, and there's a lot of businesses that operate in that space. A lot of people out there that, want to try and get people's money off them because they want to have a breakthrough in their own financial circumstances. And in my experience, a lot of them either have no bloody idea what they're talking about, or have no commitment to operating in their customers' best interests. And I very much thought, well, why can't there be a company that helps clients, but does it with integrity and does it from a space of wanting to contribute not only to its clients, but their staff and the greater community. And that's what we built.
Yeah, which I'd love to chat about that in just a second, because I think that's really important. Before we do you feel that there's a bit of a misconception out there in society that's sold to us that life is supposed to be easy, or we are supposed to be happy all the time, that we shouldn't have to have the challenges? Because I know for myself, I see a lot, especially like the coaching industry. It's an industry that's just blown up seemingly overnight. But over the last few years, and I just see a lot of people, I suppose similar to the wealth space. I see a lot of people trying to make a breakthrough in their own life, their own personal circumstances, but it's done in such a way that people are sold to that, if you pay us enough money, you won't have to experience challenge anymore. You won't have to experience pain anymore. You won't have to experience life. You can just live this happy life. You'll have your mantras and everything will be, rainbows and fairy floss. And it's just, from my perspective, it's just not reality. What reality is that the more successful you become in life, and deem success in your own way, but the more successful you become in life, the bigger the challenges they're going to be. Mm-hmm. But how do we become a version of ourselves that can start to welcome those challenges? Because you said something before that kind of strikes me is that's something that you've really taken on board in life, is that, you've taken on board looking into your life, looking into areas where there is challenge or there is adversity or there is unknownness, and taking them on, taking the bull by the horns and going, okay, this is going to be uncomfortable. It's going to suck. But you know what? Like I'm going to give it a go and I'm going to see what happens. Like, what's your take on that?
Yeah, so I'd like to give you a simple answer, but if, one thing I've found to be true is that, the reality is life is not simple, and it can't be done by rules of thumb or, cliched little mottos or mantras and things like that. So I think there's a couple of things. So one is, I don't have a problem with people trying to better their own circumstances. I know a lot of people, the reason why they go and do courses to be trained how to be coaches is because they want to have their own sense of financial security and financial freedom. And, I'm never gonna say that shouldn't be the case.
Yeah,
right? Yeah, but at the same time, there are, I must admit, and I can be a little skeptical from time to time, and but I must admit, some of the times I look out there at some people advertising themselves as coaches, and I'm like, what the hell? What track record or what experience have you got? Okay, you went and did a $5,000 NLP course, and now you're a bloody master mind trainer or whatever it is. And it's like, are you serious? Like that.
You also know the conversation that happens off Facebook. You see these people selling themselves as being a wealth expert. The fact they haven't got any money.
And I'm not criticising that industry either, because, by the way, I'm very vocal about the fact that, in many cases, the last people you should be getting financial advice off is accountants and finance brokers and financial planners. Because once again, and it comes back to that advice that I said before, only listen to people who are where you want to be.
Yeah.
If you're taking financial advice off an accountant and the accountant is not, rich, and you want to be rich, well, you're an idiot.
See, if someone's gone and done the NLP course and they've had a significant breakthrough in the life of themselves in some area of relationship or finances or whatever, they've got a track record. Not everyone's going to be born with a bunch of business clients they've coached and got great results with, but go out there, get results for yourself first. Go out there, work with some other people that are close to get results for them, and prove to yourself and prove to others that what you've got is able to be replicated.
Totally. And, on the other side, the simple fact of the matter is consumers, I think there is a large percentage of people that are very naive, and they're either naive or indifferent.
Yeah.
And they don't mind that, and they don't want to do the work or the thinking that would move them from, being naive or indifferent into something else. So, of course there's completely unethical behavior by some companies, corporations, and businesses, and that should definitely be shut down. And, I like the opportunity that we have now to provide feedback and reviews and stuff like that, because you can quite easily do your research. But, but it's not only is it it's buyer beware as well. You know, you got to do your own due diligence or research. And if you don't and you get stung, well, you know, that's the price of being naive.
Yeah. Look, I remember in the beginning, you know, like I went bankrupt 8.5 years ago now in one of my first businesses for a couple of $1 million. And, you know, I went to learn coaching and psychology and, you know, I wanted to kind of learn how I'd managed to mess my life up so bad. And I remember 6 months later, looking in a position where all my clients, I went and started coaching on things like depression, anxiety, and sexual abuse, and a bunch of stuff that I didn't really have any past experience in, but I did have experience in being able to create shifts in people's thinking and the way people were acting. And I woke up one morning and realized that all my clients are business owners. And I was like, this doesn't make sense. Like, I'm a failed business owner. And it's that worth thing that you spoke about before. It's like, I can't coach a business owner. But the funny thing was, I wasn't coaching them on their business. I was coaching them on themselves and their thinking and the way that they were showing up in life. Yet they were having significant breakthroughs in the business. And so at that point, you know, I made a decision to start coaching business owners pro bono because I didn't have experience or runs on the board. You know, I was willing to go and put my money where my mouth was, coach them pro bono, get some big results, get some case studies and track records to further fuel me to kind of move forwards. And I think that, you know, so often, as you said, people are willing to take people's money and consumers are willing to pay it because they are in pain or because they are being sold the Aussie dream. And they think that if they just pay money or invest a bit of time, they won't have to go through the suffering that they are. But, you know, I think that it's that suffering that actually creates resilience and it creates that experience you're talking about, that growth. Like, you know, you mentioned something before. I don't know I can't remember how you worded it, but it was like, you know, through those greatest challenges and adversities you've had, that's actually what's allowed you to be where you are today, not just for yourself and the life of yourself and your family, but your experiences you are now able to pass on to your clients through infinite wealth.
Yeah, I think, you know, I do agree we're often sold the dream kind of thing, but once again, that's companies who spend millions and billions of dollars on marketing and they know that they can get an emotional response out of you. Yeah. And that's what they're doing. And, you know, you've got to be wary of that. And, you know, if you're not, like I said, you'll pay the price. You know, but I think, look, it's one of my mentors once said something to me and it went like this: life is lived on the skinny branches. You know, I think it's a bit of a paradox of what it is to live. And, you know, in terms of biologically, like how, as a creature, we don't have a really good understanding of how we operate as a creature. You know, our brains are designed to only have us do two things, and that is one, to survive, and two is reproduce. You know, yeah. So your brain is constantly out to keep you away from threat, and it does a fantastic job of that. You know. And, you know, some people might argue with this, but often why people will end up staying in the relationships that they stay in, you know, or having the same things happening, it's actually safe for them because there's not a lot of threat. It's safe. They're comfortable in that space. Whereas, you know, for us to live a life that, you know, where we experience the things like satisfaction, fulfillment,
love.
You know, love, yeah. Like, I mean, man, true love, man, that's one of the most threatening things I've ever experienced in my life, yeah. You know? Yeah. You know, like, I mean, I recently got married and, you know, like giving my word. And that's, for me, that's something it's a really big thing for me is my word. And, you know, I know a lot of people think that, you know, their word is a big thing for them, but probably for me more so than the most, I would suggest. You know, for me to make a promise to my wife for life was incredibly uncomfortable, knowing that, you know, and the way that I've set up my environment, the people around me, is that, you know, if I ever not or wasn't honoring that promise, they have full permission to kick my ass, you know, because that's the word I'm giving, you know. And all the experiences that we really crave to live a full life don't exist in survival, don't exist in being comfortable. They exist in being in a constant state of threat. So I've kind of, you know, I've started to develop my life where I actually seek out, and it's got to be done in a managed way because you've got to manage your biology, i.e. stress and cortisol and, you know, things like that. But if I'm getting too comfortable, it's time for a new challenge. Like if I'm up to something and it seems achievable, then I haven't set the right goal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I love that.
yeah, for me, that's the experience of living.
Yeah. Life is to be
No,
lived on skinny branches. I love that analogy.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So, mate, look, God, that's so good. Like, it's very on point with how I think and act and live, and it scares the shit out of a lot of other people around you. Like, I know in the beginning, my team was like, "What are you doing? Like, what are these decisions that you're making?" Because how can they not be involved in that? But equally too, through that process, they start to learn to trust in fear in somewhat. We're not talking going and jumping off a cliff with no parachute, but it's the
of
difference
course.
of picking up the microphone and speaking at an event in front of 300 people or not, because you're afraid of what they might think of you. So, mate, I'd love you to share, just because we had a chat the other day, and I was just so inspired by what you stand for. I very much know that you are a man of integrity, and also what your company stands for. I'd love you to share with the listeners and the viewers, like, a little bit more around, like, what does life look like for you now? And, what is it that you get to do week in, week
Yeah.
out now, based on, because of what you've chosen to overcome?
Yeah, sure. Well, first thing probably to say is I now work harder than I have in my entire life. So basically we have a group of 8 companies. We have, so we run a lot of workshops and do a lot of education, but then what we have is all the support companies. I always wanted to have a business where, one of my ethics as well is that knowledge doesn't make a difference. Many people out there want to lose weight, but and we all know how to lose weight, so knowledge doesn't make a difference, right? So while we did the education, the ethic that we wanted to have around our business was we actually wanted to have people, a lot of the time people spend 10 grand and go into a course, right? They walk out the course at the end of the day, they got the knowledge, great, but they never put anything into play. So we wanted to actually have it more along the lines where as people would work with us, that's where they pay us essentially. So if we're ever getting paid, it's because a person is progressing through their strategy. So, we have finance brokers to help people to structure the finance the way that it really does need to be structured for investors, which is very different from how most normal brokers and banks will often do it. We have financial planners to make sure that things like all the insurances, like that, investing is all about exposing yourself to growth opportunities while mitigating risk to as close to zero as possible. As well as being able to help, our financial planners can also help our clients with other investment strategies, like managed fund superannuation, things like that. We then do also property investment and property research. So, rather than people, often people in property investment will buy what they think are good investments or what their friends are saying they're good investments or what they've been told are good investments, rather than what the research and statistics have actually demonstrated over a long period of time. So we have a research arm that's looking Australia-wide, and it's constantly, we can constantly identify probably the top 20 to 25 areas in the country at any one time, and then also help clients with property investment strategies as well. We also have a property management arm. We have an accounting arm. And I guess that kind of probably makes up most of the financial arms that we have. But very much it's, I'm out to change people's perception about their finances. So much of what we're taught about money, what we read about money or what we believe about money is just flawed. It's really changing their perspective around their finances and having them understand that, it's actually really quite simple and you don't need a lot, but you need to start taking action. And even though it's a small action, that deliberate action over time against a plan. And, we did kind of, like people, it's surprising how many people have no idea what it is that they're trying to achieve, and just the difference that it makes to actually have people understand, where they want to kind of get to, by when they want to get there, what they're going to need to do to be able to produce that, and then have a step-by-step plan to get them there. So, that's essentially the business. We donate 10% of our profits to charity. We've been recognised as being one of the fastest growing companies in Australia. I've won awards for philanthropy and my business acumen, you might say, and an Entrepreneur of the Year award I won. And, pretty much since building that, we've just really been developing, we have almost 40 staff now, and, every single one of our staff are committed to developing themselves and committed to giving back to their clients and the community. And it's been a real journey and a challenge, but one that's been really great. Building a company that has the personnel and the systems and processes to really deliver the level of customer service and the results to our clients. We're very happy to, we survey our clients over 11 points of contact over a 12-month period. And we get, across those 11 points of contact, we get satisfaction rates in excess of 90%, which for a complex process
Incredible.
like investment is something I'm incredibly proud of. But it's, I've had to develop myself in, how to handle people and staff, and, I've had to develop myself in, I've always been a little bit of a control freak in being able to have staff that have kind of grown, and, my job is kind of to get out of the way and let them do what they do. And, there's many areas of the business where, many of my team are better than what I could ever be in those areas, and trusting them and, letting them go down that pathway. And, it's a really, and I imagine it's probably going to be, are you dad at all, Barry? You got kids?
Yeah.
I imagine it's good training for being a father.
It's so funny you say that. I jumped on a plane to come to Jakarta for a couple of weeks. I'm here for a meditation retreat, and I've recently just successfully removed myself from my business, and I find now that whenever I step back in, I mess shit up. It actually operates better now without me. And I was getting on the plane, and I had this experience with one of my kids that morning before I dropped him off to his mum and to soccer. And I was like, holy shit, like growing a business is exactly like growing a child. Like it is, like you cannot get close to the fact. If you actually look at your business the same as your kids, and your kids the same as your business, they need the same thing. You can't give them too much love, right? You need to give them enough love, like it is incredibly paradoxical growing a business and having a child, and knowing when to be there, knowing when to step away, knowing when they need a shoulder to cry on. Like it is incredible if you want to step into relating to life and business in that energetic way. So I 100% agree that when you have a child, you'll probably still learn a lot of things you haven't yet learned.
I'm sure I will. But I love that. I really love, it's something that I've, I think, the school system kind of beat, wanting to learn out of me a little bit. But it's something that it's been a good 15, maybe even 20 years now, but I kind of rediscovered my passion for learning. And, it's just something that I just absolutely love now,
I think that happens to a lot of people, mate. Like I've spoken to so many people that just didn't enjoy school, didn't enjoy learning. And, I never read a book cover to cover outside of possibly like a Goosebumps book until I started business. And now it's something that's a regular habit for me. And I think that you talk about the way that we're educated around money. Like the fact is, I don't think we are. Like the schooling system, as far as I know, still today doesn't have an educational system outside of the Dolomite program, which is just infiltrating and indoctrinating kids into, borrowing money essentially, and the banking system. It's not set up, designed in such a way to help the average person to generate wealth.
Oh, and look, the reality is that who we learn from about money is mum and dad, and not because they sit down and teach us, because we watch them with theirs. Yeah. And the biggest mistake that I see is that people, we're told to go and get a good education, but why? So we can get a good job. We get indoctrinated into this, working for money kind of lifestyle. And whether that's a job or a business, it's the same thing. You're exchanging your time and labor for dollars and cents. Yeah. And there's just no freedom down that path, and there never will be. And, and the other thing I see as a big error, particularly with self-employed people, is they make the mistake of thinking their business is an asset. It's just not. You need to look. I have no problems with generating an income, and generate as much income as meets your particular aims, right? But you've got to understand that you've got to get some of that income into assets, and by the way, your own personal home is not an asset either. It is an asset in the sense that it will increase in value over time. In the down way that it does according to the economic cycles. But your house is never going to generate you a passive income. You've got to get assets outside of your own home. And, and primarily that's what we're taught by mum and dad is, go and get a good job, go and get a house, work your guts off in that job, pay the house off, and that's going to give you financial freedom. And it's just not. And for a start, 60% of retirees into retirement with a mortgage. I mean, who can afford to live off the pension and pay a mortgage, So you've got to be investing in things like property, shares, managed funds, ETFs, gold bonds, and of course the question is, well, how do we do that? Tim, that sounds complex. Well, I've got an easy answer for you. Come to one of my workshops.
Yeah, mate, you took the words out of my mouth. Like for the people out there, because we could, continue on down this track a lot further. For the people out there that are feeling, drawn or curious around learning more from you, like how can they get in touch?
Yeah, look, easiest way is just get on the website, infinitewealth.com.au. There'll be plenty of links around there where you can come to one of our workshops. We offer them regularly in Melbourne and Perth at the moment. There's also a great thing to do as well. Your typical social channels like, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, whether it's following me personally, Tim Guest, or whether it's the company Infinite Wealth. I'm really committed to sharing my knowledge with others. So, we do regular Facebook Lives, and even if you can't get along to one of our workshops, you can get a lot of value out of those kind of the blogs and the videos and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that I just would implore people to do is, even if it's not with me, do something. And another thing that one of my mentors once taught me is that even taking the wrong action is better than taking no action at all.
Yeah.
I would much rather you do something and fuck it up.
Nothing. Yeah. Because at least you learn. That's what we talked about, right? It's the whole thing is at least you could take that as feedback, not that you failed, but you've just learned what not to do.
In fact, I mean, it's one, just on that as well, like we're so messed up about failure, mate. It is the only way we have grown and developed. And, don't be afraid of fail. Try failing more than anyone else. You'll have a much better life.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't remember who said it, but someone once said that if you want to succeed twice as quick, fail twice as fast.
Yeah.
There was Thomas Edison that, someone said to Thomas Edison, oh, well, you failed, 900 times in creating a light bulb. He's like, I never failed. I just learnt 900 ways not to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So it's all a matter of perspective. Tim Guest, mate, it's been an absolute honour. So for anyone out there, infinitewealth.com.au is how they can find you, or on one of the social channels, either Infinite Wealth or Tim Guest, mate. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time today.
You're more than welcome. Great to talk to you, Barry.
Cool. So look, for anyone out there watching or listening, we'd love if you want to comment, share, ask a question. We can get it to Tim, get an answer for you, or tag someone in that you think needs to hear this message. So once again, thanks for this episode of The Comeback Game, Inspired and Unstoppable. My name is Barry McGee, and I look forward to speaking to you and seeing you on the next episode. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Barry.